Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, so if you've ever tried to launch a product, a service, or maybe even just pitched a new idea at work, you already know that understanding your audience is literally everything. But here's the thing. When a lot of people hear the phrase market research, they instantly picture, throwing together a quick 10-question survey, firing it off, and calling it a day. But true market research, it's a high-stakes detective process. It's this incredibly disciplined, systematic journey of connecting the dots between consumers and decision makers and doing it all using hard evidence. So today we're going to explore exactly how this detective work happens, the really cool methods we have at our disposal, and how the AI revolution is completely changing the game.
All right, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to break this whole complex universe down into 6 quick, logical chapters. 1. Beyond the simple survey. 2. Start with the decision. 3. Exploring the unknown. 4. Measuring and testing. 5. AI and market research. And 6. The insights engine. Let's jump right into Chapter 1, Beyond this simple survey, data versus insight. You see, research really isn't just lazily asking people what they want. It is a rigorous process of moving from raw numbers to actual actionable insights. To bring this to life, let's look at a totally fictional case study, Aurora University. Let's say Aurora is thinking about building a brand new AI-supported career guidance service for their international master's students. Now, imagine they look at their current system and they find this one key metric, 38%. Only 38% of eligible students used their existing career workshop. Well, that number alone tells management absolutely nothing about what to do next, right? It's just a recorded observation. But this is the exact trap so many businesses fall into. They collect data and they mistakenly think it gives them direction. To transform that dead-end metric, we have to kind of level it up through 4 stages. We start with the data, that 38% usage rate. Then we organize it into information. We notice a pattern. We see that usage is specifically lower for students arriving from outside of Europe. Okay, but we still don't know why. So we dig deeper to find the insight. We discover these students aren't avoiding the workshop because they aren't interested. They are experiencing deep uncertainty about when and how to even begin the process. And boom, there's our breakthrough. That is a highly credible explanation of why the pattern is happening. Finally, that insight triggers an action implication. Aurora decides to offer a guided first-step pathway during a student's very first month on campus. We didn't just collect data here, we actually engineered an insight. Moving on to Chapter 2, start with the decision, framing the mystery.
The reality is, research quality begins way before a single piece of data is even collected. Every truly good research project actually starts by working backward from a highly consequential management decision. The absolute crucial point here is understanding the fundamental difference between a management problem and a research problem. Take the management problem, should Aurora build the AI career service? This is action-oriented, right? It's a choice. But if you take that exact question directly to your consumers, you're going to get terrible leading research. Because if you literally ask consumers exactly what you should build, you'll end up with Homer Simpson's car. It just doesn't work. You have to translate it into a research problem, something like which student problems are insufficiently addressed and what adoption barriers exist. Confusing these two is a fatal flaw in business. Management asks what to do, research asks what we need to know. Which brings us to Chapter 3, Exploring the Unknown, the Qualitative Toolbox. Sometimes you literally don't even know what you don't know. The language, the motives, or the causal mechanisms are totally unclear to you. And that's exactly when we drop the surveys and pick up our qualitative tools. One of the absolute most fascinating tools we have is something called laddering. This is a qualitative interview technique where you repeatedly ask why a certain attribute matters to someone. It acts just like a psychological ladder, helping the researcher climb from a basic, surface-level product feature all the way up to a consumer's incredibly deep personal values. Let's play this out. Say a student tells you they want the new AI app to have 24/7 availability. The researcher says, okay, why? The student replies that it allows for immediate action whenever anxiety hits. Okay, why does that matter? Well, it leads to less procrastination. And why is that important? Because it gives them a sense of control. And finally, why do you need that control? Because it supports their self-confidence. Do you see what happened there? The deepest value actually driving that student isn't the 24/7 availability at all. It's a deep emotional need for self-confidence. If Aurora's marketing team only ever focused on the availability aspect, they would have completely missed the emotional hook. So think about your own products or services for a second. Are you just selling availability? Are you actually selling self-confidence? All right, Chapter 4, Measuring and Testing the Quantitative Toolbox.
Once we've explored that unknown territory and found our core concepts, like self-confidence, we need to actually estimate how prevalent they are across the whole population and test our interventions. And what is just incredible about modern quantitative research is how heavily it relies on behavioral and digital trace data. We can track transactions, clicks, searches, dwell time, app events, the whole shebang. Think about this. A simple smartphone app can literally collect millions of behavioral data points in a single afternoon. This is so incredibly powerful because it shows us what people actually do in a system rather than what they merely remember doing. Human memory is notoriously flawed, but digital trace data? It doesn't forget. But, and this is a big but, behavioral data doesn't tell us intention. We often still have to ask questions.
But asking questions requires strict discipline. Take a look at this survey question. How helpful was our innovative service? Seriously, think about it for a second. If you received this survey, how would you feel? We have all gotten a survey exactly like this, practically begging us for a compliment, right? It's a completely terrible leading question because it forces an assumption right onto the respondent. It just assumes the service is already innovative.
The fix is actually super simple but absolutely crucial. A much better, beautifully balanced approach is how helpful or unhelpful was the service? You have to remember, a questionnaire is a measurement instrument. It is not a promotional tool. Your wording, the order of the questions, the response options, they literally alter the answers you get. As a leader, you've got to take your ego completely out of the equation to get to the absolute truth. And to really get to the truth of cause and effect, we run experiments. You've got laboratory experiments, which give you perfect control and speed to test internal validity. And then you have field experiments, which give you high realism because you're observing real people doing real things in natural settings. So, for example, Aurora could run an A/B test out in the field. They show half the students a general information message, and the other half gets that guided first step message we talked about. By randomly assigning these messages out in the real world and controlling the environment, Aurora can definitively isolate the variables. This proves exactly which message actually causes a spike in bookings. For a non-expert, this is kind of the holy grail. You are moving beyond just a coincidence or correlation to actual undeniable causation.
Okay, Chapter 5, AI in Market Research, Superpowers and Pitfalls.
Artificial intelligence is drastically reshaping everything we just talked about. I mean, the ground is literally shifting beneath our feet right now. Let's start with the AI superpowers, doing literature reviews, drafting interview guides, instant translation, transcription, qualitative coding, survey programming, even anomaly detection. Take qualitative coding, for instance. An AI can comb through thousands of open-ended interview transcripts and identify all the core themes in, maybe 5 seconds? That is a task that used to take a human grad student 5 grueling weeks armed with highlighters and sticky notes. The sheer speed and cost-saving capabilities here are expanding our analytical capacity immensely.
But it goes even further into really cutting-edge territory, like synthetic personas. These are digital representations generated entirely by AI to mimic real people or target groups. Imagine just spinning up hundreds of synthetic customers for your business right now, testing out different app interfaces on them, and never having to recruit a single real human being. Sounds like magic, right? But hold on, because there are massive risks here. A language model generates text simply because it predicts the next word. It does not have actual human needs, it doesn't have lived experiences, and crucially, it has absolutely no real-world purchasing constraints. An AI does not have a real wallet, and it definitely doesn't feel the sting of wasting $20 on a terrible product. Which is exactly why this human oversight checklist is 100% mandatory. You cannot just blindly trust the machine. You have to ask, is using AI even appropriate for this risk level? Are we protecting confidential data? Is the output actually validated against real-world human evidence? Are we disclosing its use to the client? We have to be incredibly careful of automation bias. That's the very human tendency to just blindly trust something because a computer spit it out in a highly confident tone. The speed of AI is intoxicating, for sure, but the dangers of fabricating evidence or losing deep cultural nuance are incredibly high. The machine absolutely needs a human handler.
Finally, Chapter 6, the Insights Engine, the human element. All of these awesome tools we've covered, qualitative laddering, field experiments, behavioral data, and AI, they cannot exist as isolated, disconnected little projects. They have to be connected into a continuous, running program that fundamentally relies on human judgment. There's a great quote that says, "The objective is not to eliminate judgment. It is to discipline judgment with evidence, expose uncertainty, and create a repeatable process through which the organization learns. Basically, this means your goal isn't to replace your team's brains with algorithms, it's to give their brains much, much better ammunition. Data doesn't make decisions, folks. People do. Research just makes those people infinitely smarter.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a provocative thought. As AI gets better and better at mimicking us, generating synthetic data, writing our surveys, and predicting our choices, what human element of your business is truly irreplaceable by synthetic data? I really want you to think about that. Because in the future of market research, the most valuable asset won't be the person who can collect the most data. It'll be the one who can exercise the most disciplined human judgment. Thanks so much for exploring this with me. And hey, keep questioning everything.